After a year away, I discovered hidden camera footage that revealed an incredible transformation. Sarah stepped off the bus, the familiar scent of cornfields and home cooking enveloping her, but a heavy heart clung to her. A year spent in Chicago, dedicating herself to nursing, had suddenly been replaced with the hollow echoes of her childhood home. A house no longer filled with her father's laughter, but layered in dust and memories that unnerved her. As she sorted through dusty boxes, memories flooded back. The warmth of her father's smile. The pride he took in his work ethic. But where did that leave her? The weight of a nursing career that felt more like a burden than a calling bore down on her, as she realized how easily ambition can fracture against personal responsibility. Just as her mother needed her, a pang of realization hit. She too had left something behind. Her own spirit. Then she found it. A small, hidden camera left in the corner of the attic. A relic of her father's spontaneous joy. With a hesitant hand, she pressed play, her heart racing. The screen flickered to life, illuminating the room with vibrant memories as her younger brother David, once shy and uncertain, appeared, bouncing a basketball, laughing with friends, and contesting fierce rivalries. Each scene revealed snippets of his life she'd missed through the busy lens of her own. All those moments of self-doubt and determination, bubbling up as he embraced the challenges of a quiet small-town life. A surge of pride rushed through her, battling with a pang of regret. There he was, transforming in every frame, while she had stagnated, standing still in a time capsule of family duty. Her capacity to care for others had dulled her awareness of her own identity. Just as she leaned toward reclaiming that lost self, the footage shifted violently. David, in the heat of a pivotal game, was confronted by rival fans. Shadows of uncertainty clouded his expression as their jeers echoed, threatening to suffocate his newfound confidence. Sarah's stomach twisted. Was she witnessing a shadow of her father's legacy unraveling right before her eyes? Why had she been so focused on life in Chicago that she had overlooked David's evolving story? A wave of anguish washed over her. Could she remain silent as he faced the world's prejudice? Her nursing skills weren't just about caring for lives in a sterile hospital. They were about defending dignity and forging familial bonds. Every ounce of her training screamed for action. Yet she hesitated, torn between fear and the desire to shield him from unnecessary pain. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the footage came to an end, silence filled the room, wrapping around Sarah like a suffocating blanket. The echoes of her past collided with the present, igniting a desperation within her. Could she stand against the inequalities that plagued their town? Was confronting the players' toxic attitudes the answer? Or would she risk failing her brother by exposing him to more conflict? With her heart racing and her thoughts spiraling, she felt the steep climb of responsibility and expectation compressing her chest, leaving her at a crossroads. The stakes grew higher, pulling at her until the whispers of doubt nearly drowned her thoughts. What sacrifices was she willing to make to reclaim both their legacies? As the uncertainty loomed, so did an exhilarating aliveness that made her pulse race. She was poised on the edge of possibility, ready to fight, but still shackled by fear. The morning sunlight streamed through the dusty attic window, illuminating the floating particles that synced with the rhythm of her thoughts. Sarah stood frozen, the camera still in her hand, an anchor to an unsettling realization that her brother's journey mirrored her own hidden struggles. What had once felt like a clear path in Chicago was now obscured by fear and familial expectation. She took a deep breath, searching for clarity amid the chaos swirling in her mind. Her nursing training had instilled in her a strong sense of duty. To heal, to protect, to serve. Yet with David, that instinct was complicated by emotional ties that pulled her in conflicting directions. Did she have the courage to adapt her skills beyond the sterile confines of a hospital? To raise her voice and defend him in a more personal arena? The next few days blurred together as Sarah oscillated between reflections of the past and responsibilities of the present. She ventured out to the town's local gym where David often practiced, the familiar air thick with competition. She watched him from a distance, observing the spark in his eyes as he dribbled the basketball with renewed confidence. Yet, the smile quickly vanished when rival players taunted him, their insults cutting deeper than mere words. Each jeer felt like a dagger, and Sarah's heart raced at the sight of her brother's faltering spirit. She could no longer remain an invisible spectator in his life. Her years of training had equipped her with not only medical knowledge, but resilience and the capacity to confront unimaginable challenges. It was time to translate those skills into action. The idea of stepping into the fray was paralyzing, yet thrilling. What if she could become his advocate, not just as a protective sister, but as a nurse determined to empower him? But the specter of her father loomed, whispering the importance of discipline, the need to avoid confrontation. Was she betraying the values instilled in her? Or was it her chance to honor them differently? With resolve hardening in her chest, Sarah decided to take action. She penned a letter to the local sports authority, outlining concerns about the harassment athletes faced. At the same time, she planned to hold a meeting with David's coach to discuss the issues openly. The depth of her commitment surprised her. These were more than ideas. They were tangible steps toward reclaiming her voice and protecting David. As she walked out of her childhood home, fueled by determination, she finally felt a flicker of her own spirit. Not a full burn yet, but a spark. Undeniable and powerful. She crossed paths with familiar townsfolk, each step a reminder that she was ready to confront not just the external challenges David faced, but also those within herself. No longer was she merely reliving memories. She was crafting a narrative of her own. But as she approached the gym, her confidence wavered. What if her voice wasn't enough? What if this endeavor only brought more pain to David? Doubts crept in like shadows, blending with the sunlight that warmed her face, and then she caught a glimpse of David through the window. Laughter shared with teammates, his joy radiating despite the challenges. If he could face his fears, surely she could face hers. The moment crystallized, a turning point in her journey of personal and professional development. As she took a deep breath and stepped toward the gym entrance, fear and determination danced within her. The time had come to face the realities that had haunted her since returning home. Would she step into the light of possibility, or retreat back into the shadows of doubt? The doorway stood open, and Sarah hesitated just long enough to feel the weight of her decisions teetering on the edge of change. The moment for inaction had passed. She had chosen to redefine her legacy. Would it be enough to shift the trajectory of David's life, and her own? As Sarah crossed the threshold of the gym, the din of squeaking sneakers and bouncing basketballs enveloped her like a warm embrace, yet the excitement felt alien beneath her skin. Each footfall echoed the rapid thrum of her heart, a reminder of how heavy the weight of intention could become when faced with uncertainty. David remained oblivious, lost in his world of camaraderie and competition. She lingered by the entrance, unsure of how to breach the gap between the woman who had left Chicago and the one who now stood ready to confront a different kind of battle. The gym's vibrant energy clashed with the oppressive voice in her mind that insisted she should retreat. The echoes of her childhood lessons on restraint magnifying her doubt. "Hey, Sarah!" A voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. It was Jake, one of David's teammates, approaching her with an easy smile. "You're back. You should come watch us play more often." Her throat tightened, but she plastered a smile in return. I'm just here to see how things are going. This was her opportunity. A small open door to step inside and assert herself in a supportive role. Jake's eyes flicked to David, who was now sitting on the bench, sweaty and tired, but surrounded by laughter. He's getting better. He's been working hard. There was a hint of admiration in Jake's tone, one that she doubted could survive the relentless pressure of their competitive environment. Thanks. I know he cares about the game, she replied, a sudden surge of protective energy flooding her veins. But being a shield required action, not just acknowledgement. As David caught her gaze, his expression shifted from joviality to uncertainty. It was fleeting, like a cloud passing over the sun, yet it ignited something fierce within Sarah. The letters and meetings she had planned crystallized into a singular purpose. She needed to be the advocate for the brother who had always stood in her shadow. The idea of confronting both the coach and the players about the disparaging remarks made her stomach churn. But she had a mission now, an undeniable resolve that anchored her. She knew that speaking out could change the culture surrounding David's experience and, more importantly, demonstrate to him that she believed in him, a belief he had begun to lose in the face of adversity. The moments stretched as her internal clock raced, and she realized she was still standing at the doorway. With a quick adjustment of her posture, she stormed toward the bench, breathless yet unwavering. "David, can we talk?" His brows knit together in confusion, but he nodded, and they stepped a few paces away, his teammates casting curious glances. "What is it?" he asked, a hint of wariness creeping into his tone. She sensed that he was accustomed to seeing her in the nurturing role, nurse, sister, caregiver, not as an ally on the battlefield of sportsmanship. "I've been thinking a lot about how things have been for you this year." She hesitated, wanting to choose her words carefully, recognizing how easily they could provoke unwanted defense. "And I want to help." David's eyes widened. "Help how?" "I'm going to meet with your coach about the way players treat each other. It's not okay, and I want to advocate for you." His laughter, surprisingly, was devoid of mirth. "You think that'll change anything?" "Maybe not, but I need you to know you're not alone in this," she affirmed, steadier than she felt. "Just like you're standing with your teammates, I'm going to stand with you." He studied her, realization dawning, and she could see the unease slip from his expression, replaced by something else. Possibility. But uncertainty still clouded the space between them, and she could sense it draping over their dialogue. What if advocating didn't lead to change? What if she became just another target of ridicule? This path was fraught with the same risks as her decision to return. Yet, as they continued to speak, one truth emerged undeniably. Her journey was now entwined with David's, each step forward reflecting not just his growth, but her own. The meeting with the coach would come soon, the confrontation looming large on the horizon. The truth sat heavy in her chest. How much could she control, and at what cost? As they left the gym, shadows stretched long behind them, filled with unexamined moments and the uncertainty of a shared future. Behind them, the laughter faded, replaced by the weight of the battle to come. But the spark within her glowed brighter. Today was only the beginning, and the next step loomed ever closer. She would have to confront not only the external challenges, but also the internal fears that had held her captive for too long. Could she redefine what it meant to advocate for both her brother and herself? The day of the meeting with the coach arrived, and the anticipation churned restlessly inside Sarah. Each tick of the clock in the empty gymnasium echoed her growing anxiety. She arrived early, finding solace in the quiet, but the stillness only amplified the fear that threatened to spiral out of control. Would her voice falter? Would she be dismissed before she could even make her case? David had expressed mixed feelings about her decision to confront his coach. In the moments leading up to her entry into that office, she grappled with doubts. Was she truly making a difference or simply inflating her own sense of importance? Those questions sparked a nerve in her. Could she, a woman trying to reclaim her own narrative, really disrupt a male-dominated world of basketball? She clutched the folder containing her notes, a physical representation of her thoughts and observations. Each page was filled with the poignant realities of what David faced on and off the court. Subtle jabs and derogatory comments that could cut deeper than any physical injury. She felt the weight of responsibility settle upon her shoulders, pressing her down but also igniting a fire within. As the coach entered, Sarah quickly straightened herself, summoning the confidence that had eluded her moments ago. Coach Reynolds was not at all what she expected. A stern figure with an extensive coaching resume. But there was a flicker of warmth in his eyes that suggested understanding. This was a man who held a pivotal role in David's life, and Sarah had to ensure he recognized her brother's value beyond scoreboard statistics. "Sarah, right?" he asked, gesturing for her to sit in a chair across the desk. She nodded and took a deep breath before launching into her well-rehearsed speech about the need for respect in teamwork, the significance of positive reinforcement, and how some peer remarks had been diminishing. But as she spoke, she discovered her words flowed with an intensity she hadn't anticipated. The frustration and concern she had bottled within all these years spilled out uncontrollably, each point deliberate, yet unpolished. As the minutes ticked by, it became clear that she was not merely advocating for David. She was advocating for a more inclusive environment, one that could pave the way for others who felt unseen or silenced. "Look, Sarah," Coach Reynolds interrupted, raising a hand. "I appreciate your passion, but the locker room culture can be tough. It's competitive. Boys will be boys, you know? They don't mean any harm." The words hung in the air, prickling at her resolve. This approach of dismissing issues as mere banter ignited anger within her, lifting her from her seat, metaphorically and emotionally. But it does harm. It creates a toxic environment where some players shrink while others assume dominance. There was an urgency in her voice now, a new strength that surprised even her. For a fleeting moment, she saw acknowledgement dawn in the coach's expression. A man faced with an uncomfortable realization. Perhaps he'd never considered how his behavior shaped the atmosphere. Was it fear? Lack of knowledge? She questioned what experiences had led him to accept such validity in toxic camaraderie. For David, and for other players who might feel unseen, changes can't just be talked about. They have to be acted upon. I'm willing to help in any way possible. But it starts with recognizing the value of every player. The certainty in her voice felt invigorating, but her heart raced, unsure of the reception to expect. Coach Reynolds leaned back, considering her words. It was a moment that felt suspended in time, and she could sense the shift. The possibility that her advocacy could yield real change. As they concluded the meeting, a tension eased, but a new uncertainty took its place. She had ignited a conversation, but would it lead to action? How could she prepare herself for the fallout or the pushback from both teammates and the coach himself? This confrontation marked not just a pivotal moment for David, but an unexpected awakening in Sarah, a self-advocacy she hadn't engaged with fully before. Stepping outside into the fresh air, the weight of her venture settled into a palatable mix of anxiety and hope. Each uncertain breath tasted like a promise. Slowly she realized that the true transformation she sought wasn't just for David, but also for herself. An evolution she hadn't anticipated when she returned to this city. Yet all of this raised a new worry. How would David react to the changes, to the potential ripple effects of their confrontation? The next challenge loomed large and looming. Could she communicate this new journey to him without overwhelming the fragile progress they'd started? As Sarah walked away from the gym, her mind raced with thoughts of David and the implications of her meeting. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that mirrored the uncertainties creeping into her heart. With each step, she felt an exhilarating flutter deep inside. This was not merely about advancing David's position on the team. It was about reclaiming agency, asserting herself in a space long dominated by others' narratives. Arriving home, she glanced at the family photographs adorning the walls, memories fading in and out of focus as they bled into one another. There was David, the joyful boy dribbling a basketball, an image that made her smile sheltering a twinge of sorrow. Would he ever feel whole in this world of competitive masculinity? She began contemplating her own childhood, recalling how scrambling to hide her tears became second nature as she watched boys wield power without considering the fragility of their status. "Sarah!" David's voice jolted her from her reverie as he ambled into the room, his usual swagger diminished. She sensed a darkness lurking behind his bravado, an echo of shared burdens reflected in their eyes. "Can we talk?" she said carefully, gauging his mood, hoping to approach the topic of her conversation with Coach Reynolds without triggering any defensive walls. She saw him nod, but his energy felt limited, as if he were awaiting some critical blow. "Did you talk to Coach?" he asked, his voice eerily subdued. "I did," she began, choosing her words carefully. "I brought up some things that have been bothering me about the team dynamics." David shifted, tension rippling through him. "What things? You know how this stuff goes, right? You can't just expect a change overnight." "It's about more than that, David. It's about how players treat each other and how that affects everyone's performance," she pressed, still feeling that emboldened fire simmering just beneath the surface of her steady demeanor. His brow furrowed and she could see skepticism washing over his features. "Yeah, but you're not in the locker room, Sarah. This is how guys are. If you're not tough, they'll eat you alive." "Isn't that the problem?" The urgency in her voice escalated, reflecting her growing frustration. "Why should you have to put up with that? I want to help change that. I want to make it easier for everyone, including you." He paused, wresting control of his emotions as he absorbed her words. "Easier sounds good, but what's the catch? There's always a catch." "No catch," she asserted firmly, standing her ground. "This isn't just about strategy on the court. It's about respect. It's about recognizing that everyone deserves to feel safe and valued." A slippery silence hung between them, and Sarah felt her own conviction starting to waver. Would her push for change create additional fractures? Would he perceive her intentions as meddling rather than support? "What if they push back?" David asked finally. "We'll handle it together," she responded, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of anxiety. "I won't let you stand alone." Gratitude flickered briefly on his face, but with it came a shadow of doubt, a recognition of the uphill battle they were about to face. The last thing she wanted was to tarnish their relationship with her well-meaning activism. Navigating this delicate terrain required finesse and patience, two qualities she hoped to embody as they forged ahead. "Okay," he finally conceded, "but it's going to be tough. You know that, right?" "I'm ready," she replied, her resolve solidifying further. "I have some ideas on how we can approach the team. I think if we work slowly, share our experiences openly, we can find common ground. But it starts with you trusting me." He nodded, albeit hesitantly, as he wrestled with the challenge of vulnerability. Together they stood on the precipice of transformation, both personally and within the culture of the team. The thought stirred excitement within her, yet anxiety lingered like a persistent whisper. But just as hope began to flourish, her phone buzzed relentlessly on the table. The alert pulled her focus, revealing a video notification. "Sarah, you got some footage?" David asked, peering at her phone. Her heart quickened, the weight of responsibility palpable. She glanced toward the screen, where a thumbnail image captured a moment from practice. Watching this could change everything. What if it revealed more than just plays? What if it unveiled deeper layers of the environment she was thrusting herself into? With a deep breath, she clicked play. As the video started, both of their gazes were fixed, poised to uncover what awaited them. Behind the veil of competitive bravado, truths might emerge that could challenge them both. Could they face whatever revelations lay ahead, or would it reveal fractures they weren't ready to confront? The journey, it seemed, was beginning anew. The video flickered to life, drawing Sarah and David into its intensity. The screen displayed a practice game in full swing. Shouts and laughter echoed from the speakers. But in the chaos, there was a subtlety that Sarah couldn't ignore. As she watched the players move, a series of subtle interactions emerged. Moments where encouragement flickered amidst the aggression. "Look at that," she murmured, indicating a frame where David had just made an assist, and a teammate clapped him on the back. "See? There's something good happening here." David shifted his weight, skeptical. "Yeah, but that could just be them trying to get through the day. It's hard to change the culture of a locker room." Sarah felt a mix of irritation and determination brewing inside her. Maybe it is, but maybe it's a start. If we can build on these moments. As they continued to watch, Sarah noticed something different in the players' reactions to a missed shot. Instead of ridicule, there was support, a rare camaraderie that had eluded her perception. She felt a spark of hope flicker, igniting a drive she had long suppressed. "What if we used this?" she suggested, her mind racing with strategy. "We could highlight these positive interactions during our talks. Show them what's possible when the pressure outweighs the need for toughness." David glanced sideways at her, uncertainty painted on his face. "And what? Show them they can be nice as if that's the solution? What if they think it's weak?" The undercurrent of his response dug into her resolve. "But there's strength in kindness, David. This culture, what you call toughness, doesn't just suppress vulnerability, it crushes it. We need a new narrative." She could see his gears turning, wrestling with the ideas it intertwined with his long-held beliefs about masculinity and success. The weight of her proposal lingered in the air between them like an uncut thread. Was she pushing too hard? Sure, she had empathy for the team's struggles, but could she design a framework that merged both strength and support without losing his trust? "Okay, let's see what we can actually do," David finally replied, his voice a mixture of cautious hope and lingering doubt. The realization that she'd ignited some ember of collaboration thrilled her. "Let's start with small steps," she proposed. "Maybe we can set up a feedback session after practice. We can talk freely about what worked and what didn't, framing it as a way to strengthen us as a team. I'll focus on how we can communicate better." David nodded slowly, optimism flickering in his eyes. He seemed to be grasping the broader implications. If they could shift the dialogue, they could open the space for vulnerability without judgment. An approach radically different from the norm. Looking back at the video, the noise of the practice faded into background static as Sarah realized they were not merely seeking to address issues. They were shaping a new narrative for themselves and their peers. Their shared goal filled her with purpose, but with it surged doubt. Would the others embrace this new vision? Would they accept her as an ally, or cast her off as a naively supportive sister meddling in the boys' game? Lost in these questions, her mind briefly wandered to the potential backlash. What if the vulnerable moments they wanted to cultivate were met with hostility instead of appreciation? "Yeah, we can draft a schedule for the sessions," David mused. "But if it flops, how will we handle it?" "Communication," Sarah replied immediately, a conviction brewing deeper within her. "If one session doesn't resonate, we'll adjust. We have to be willing to fail, to learn, and to iterate on these ideas." There it was. the conversation that entwined their drive for change with the rawness of uncertainty. It felt like they were on the edge of something significant, armed with both the thrill of hope and the peril of impending failure. "All right," David said, a hint of determination coloring his expression. "I trust you to lead on this." And then, as if fate were nudging them forward, another notification blinked on her phone. A message from Coach Reynolds, a request for a meeting to discuss team dynamics. Sarah exchanged a glance with David, hearts pounding in sync as the stakes rose to new heights. "Looks like it's time to face the music." A shiver coursed through her as the realization struck. Everything they had discussed could be put to the test very soon. Would they find allies in their vision, or would the existing culture bleed them dry? In the aching silence of the moment, Sarah sensed that the upcoming confrontation could redefine not just her journey, but David's as well. Was she truly prepared to step into that reality? She took a deep breath, steadied herself, and replied to the coach. With one message sent, the path to their transformation began to unfurl, full of promise yet steeped in uncertainty. What awaited them could forge new strengths or reveal profound weaknesses. The air crackled with the potential of the future, vibrant yet daunting. As she set down her phone, she questioned again whether they were ready to face the truth hidden beneath the surface, ready to both confront and embrace whatever came next. The next morning dawned with an unusual weight pressing on Sarah's chest. She had barely slept, thoughts spiraling around the upcoming meeting with Coach Reynolds. In the dim light filtering through her window, she played through scenarios in her mind. How the coach might react, the questions he might pose, and, most importantly, whether he would recognize the value in her and David's vision. After a quick breakfast, she dressed for the day, choosing her outfit with careful intention. The color blue, a symbol of calm, yet confident. She wanted to embody the very qualities she hoped to foster within the team. Resilience paired with empathy. With each deliberate movement, she grounded herself in the purpose of their endeavor. This wasn't just about improving the team's dynamics. It was a step toward changing how they perceive strength itself. Minutes before their scheduled meeting, Sarah and David sat together in a conference room filled with tension. Dark wood furniture encircled a glossy table, a stark contrast to the vibrant ideas swirling in Sarah's mind. David fidgeted in his chair, the visible nerves causing Sarah's determination to swell. She leaned in closer, whispering, "We've got this. Just remember to emphasize how this benefits everyone, not just the individuals." David nodded, but she could still read uncertainty in his eyes, reflecting the internal battle he faced between tradition and transformation. When Coach Reynolds entered, his demeanor radiated authority. Tall and broad-shouldered, he exuded the intimidation that was part of his role. After exchanging casual pleasantries, he took a seat at the head of the table, his expression shifting into one of focused scrutiny. "So," he began, "you both wanted to discuss team dynamics. I'm all ears." Sarah felt the pressure build. She had envisioned this moment countless times, yet the reality of it felt vastly different than any simulation in her mind. She could sense the stakes rising, how much rested on how well they articulated their vision. "Thank you, Coach," she started, her voice steadying with practice. "We've noticed some shifts in team interactions, particularly in the ways players support one another. We believe there's an opportunity to build on this." She directed her gaze at David, allowing him to share his observations. He launched into details about their findings from the video footage, articulating exactly what Sarah had seen. Fleeting moments of camaraderie amidst rigid toughness. Coaches often overlook this, favoring performance over emotional intelligence. "And what do you hope to achieve with these observations?" Coach Reynolds asked, skepticism etched in his tone. David took a breath, clearly grappling with the challenge of presenting a new narrative while respecting the long-standing traditions of the team. "Ultimately, We're trying to create a more supportive environment," he explained. "Not only would it make the locker room more welcoming, but it could also enhance performance. Connection breeds confidence. When players feel supported, they play with more freedom." Sarah felt a flicker of pride for David. He was breaking through, articulating their shared vision with conviction, even if the coach appeared unconvinced. "Freedom doesn't win games," Coach Reynolds countered, his sharp gaze cutting through the room. "The players need to toughen up, not cozy up. Isn't this just an excuse for weakness?" Sarah inhaled sharply, the coach's words echoing as a challenge that crushed against her resolve. Abandoning her instinct to refute, she took a moment, weighing her next words. "Strength doesn't solely derive from toughness, Coach. It includes vulnerability," she replied, carefully choosing her language. "The best teams aren't composed of players who individualize success at the cost of their teammates. They build each other up, fostering a culture of strength." An uncomfortable silence enveloped the room, but in that moment of tension, Sarah felt a shift within herself. Whatever the outcome, she was advocating for an inclusive culture, both in sports and life. Coach Reynolds leaned back in his chair, his unyielding demeanor softening just slightly, and Sarah sensed a subtle evolution. He wasn't just evaluating ideas. He was witnessing the courage of two individuals determined to forge a new path. "All right, let's see what this feedback session looks like," he finally said, an unexpected concession hanging in the air, stirring hope. David exhaled loudly, the tension diffusing, while Sarah's heart raced with the adrenaline of possibility. They had ignited a spark, a flicker of acceptance. Yet she knew their task was far from complete. As they left the meeting, Sarah's mind buzzed with ideas for the feedback sessions and how to present the first steps of their initiative. But uncertainty still loomed like a cloud, reminding her that each small victory hinged on the reception from the rest of the team. "Did we just get a shot?" David asked, a mixture of disbelief and excitement threading through his tone. Sarah smiled, feeling a burgeoning confidence sprout within her. "We did. But now, we have to put it into practice." Just then, a notification on her phone broke through her thoughts. A message from one of the team's star players, asking to meet. An unexpected development that could either endorse their efforts or throw them into disarray. The moment shifted, carrying with it the weight of new potential or imminent conflict. Would the team accept the vision they were carving, or would skeptical voices drown it out before it had a chance to breathe? Sarah glanced down at her phone, the anticipation of the team's star player's request igniting a spark of urgency. The message was simple, but loaded. "Can we talk? I have some thoughts on what you and David discussed with Coach." She felt her heart quicken, the weight of responsibility settling heavily on her shoulders. She had to ensure their vision not only gained traction, but resonated with the players who could influence the team's culture. David looked at her expectantly, as if reading the air thrumming with potential. "Who's it from?" he inquired, his expression reflecting both curiosity and concern. "Jamie," she replied, quickly running through the implications. Jamie was a strong player, but also deeply entrenched in the prevailing culture, one that regarded emotional vulnerability with fierce skepticism. "Good or bad?" David asked, leaning forward. "Honestly, it could go either way," Sarah admitted, feeling an unsettling combination of excitement and dread. It was a pivotal moment. "This could either reinforce our ideas or shatter them before we even start." "Let's meet him," David urged, and her nervousness turned to determination. They needed supporters, allies who could champion their cause. As they made their way to the cafe where Jamie had suggested they meet, Sarah's mind raced with strategies and counter-arguments. What if Jamie challenged their ideas? Could she pivot effectively in the heat of the moment? Walking into the cafe, The rich aroma of coffee enveloped her, but the rising tension overshadowed any comfort it offered. Jamie sat at a table, his athletic frame relaxed, but his eyes were sharp. "Thanks for coming," Sarah said, slightly breathless as she slid into the chair opposite him. David followed suit, looking equally apprehensive. Jamie looked between them, processing the atmosphere. "So, I've heard some interesting things about what you two are pushing for," he said, his tone neutral. "Positive or negative?" David asked, breaking the simmering silence. "It depends on how you look at it," Jamie replied, a small grin forming. "I've been talking with some of the guys. Some are downright skeptical, but others are intrigued." "Like?" Sarah prompted, trying to maintain control over the conversation. "Like Lucas," he said, naming another star player known for his bluntness. "He's been thinking about the kind of environment he wants to step into for his last season. I think he might be open to it." "Then we need to get Lucas on board," David said, visibly excited. "But," Jamie interjected, raising a finger, "you have to understand, not everyone shares that sentiment. Others are fearful that this softness equates to weakness. They don't see support as something our team needs." Sarah felt a wave of frustration, battling against the tide of cynicism in the room. "But don't you see that this isn't about softness? It's about creating real connections. Wouldn't you like to play in an environment where you felt supported? Where your teammates lifted you up rather than pitted against one another?" Jamie's expression shifted, the gears turning. "You know, when I first joined the team, I felt the pressure to prove myself overwhelmingly. If I'm honest, I craved connection, but I thought vulnerability made me weak. It's just, things are different in this sport, you know?" Sarah nodded, sensing a breakthrough. "I know it feels that way, but change doesn't happen in isolation. It requires courageous conversations. It's okay to want connection. It's okay to be vulnerable." For a moment, Jamie appeared contemplative, searching her gaze. "I'll be honest, this idea's new for me. Part of me wants to believe it could work, but it's going to take a lot to shift the mindset of a whole team." "We're prepared to face that challenge," David chimed in, his excitement fueling Sarah's resolve. "But we need your help to convince them." Jamie leaned closer, a flicker of anticipation igniting in his eyes. "All right, let's see what happens if I bring it to the guys. But no promises. Just know that my voice only carries so much weight." "Every voice counts," Sarah said, a newfound confidence surging within her. They were forging a coalition, not just convincing a single player. As they parted ways, Sarah's mind reeled with possibilities. The meeting with Jamie felt like a turning point, a crack in the rigid armor the team had worn for too long. But as the excitement settled, another realization dawned on her. Convincing each player wouldn't come easy. Later that evening, as she and David brainstormed strategies, another message pinged on her phone. A video clip sent by Jamie. It showed snippets of the team's previous season, raw and unfiltered, highlighting moments of discord beneath the surface. Sarah's stomach twisted with anxiety and anticipation. This wasn't just a recap. It was a chance to confront the unspoken truth, the very conflicts they aimed to dissolve. How might it serve their argument? As she watched, everything felt at stake. Each clip resonated with the echoes of her earlier expectations and the weight of her newfound insights. Would they be able to pull this team together? Or would she discover that their vision was a hurdle too high to breach? The stakes rose palpably as they prepared to untangle a delicate matrix of performance anxieties and emotional barriers. Just then, an unsettling feeling washed over her. The realization that confronting these raw, unfiltered moments might equally expose her vulnerabilities. What they were embarking on was not merely a project. It was a crucible for each of them. Would they find the strength to transform or falter beneath the weight of fear and doubt? As the video ended, Sarah sat in silence, her heart pounding in her chest. The raw emotion emanating from the clips had struck a nerve. She'd always believed in the idea of vulnerability as a strength, yet here it was, documented evidence of a season fraught with mistrust and isolation. Each frame exposed a fracture in the team's facade, but how could she possibly guide her teammates through this mess? "Sarah?" David's voice broke through her reverie. "What do you think?" She turned to him, her mind racing. "This footage, it cuts deeper than anything we've discussed. It's not just about changing their minds. It's about changing their hearts. We need to make them see that it's not weakness, but an opportunity." David nodded slowly. "I agree, but how do we start? A video like this could go either way. Some might feel attacked or humiliated." "Exactly," she responded, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. "But what if we frame it not as criticism, but as an invitation to reflect? This is about growth." They spent the next few hours crafting a plan, discussing how to present the footage in a way that invited dialogue rather than defensiveness. But in the back of her mind, doubt simmered. Would the players really be ready to confront their past? Would they welcome the vulnerability she believed in? The following practice felt different somehow, the atmosphere charged with the impending unveiling of their proposal. Each player's typical bravado seemed heightened, as if they were all anticipating what was to come. Standing off to the side, Sarah watched as Jamie moved confidently, gathering the guys together. She felt a spark of hope, but also dread clawing at her insides. "Okay, everyone," Jamie's voice boomed, drawing attention. "I know you've heard some chatter about a different kind of conversation we want to have this season. Sarah and David have something important to share." As Sarah stepped forward, her palms were slick with sweat. Here was her moment, the culmination of all her hopes and fears. "Thanks, Jamie. Guys, I appreciate you being here," she began, her voice slightly trembling. "Today, I want us to take a look at some moments from last season. Not just to relive the past, but to learn and grow. I want us to use it as a stepping stone for something better." She clicked play on the video. As the footage filled the screen, she watched their reactions. Some laughed uneasily at their past selves, while others furrowed their brows in discomfort. It was raw and real, and she took a deep breath, pushing past her own unease. The first clip showcased a critical game where tensions had flared between teammates. The visible disconnect was jarring. She could see players refusing to acknowledge each other during the crucial moments, and the reaction among her audience was immediate. A wave of murmurs rippled through the group. "Do you guys remember this?" she asked, the silence following the video stark and heavy. "What was going through your minds in this moment?" "Frustration," Lucas piped up. "I felt like I was carrying the whole team, but no one wanted to help." "It wasn't about that, man," another player countered. "We were all feeling the pressure, just didn't know how to voice it without sounding weak." "Exactly," Sarah interjected. "Hear that? That's the crux of this issue. We need to accept that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to admit when we're struggling." The room hummed with nervous laughter mixed with tension, but a few players nodded. Sarah's stomach flipped as she sensed a shift. Maybe they were opening up, perhaps peeling away the layers of bravado. But the turning point came unexpectedly when one player, who'd always embodied the archetype of the untouchable athlete, spoke up. "This whole idea, it scares me. I've always thought showing vulnerability would jeopardize my position on the team." Sarah's breath caught. "But what if showing that vulnerability could actually strengthen us as a team?" "I think we should give it a shot," Jamie said, breaking through the lingering skepticism. "Let's see how it impacts our performance." Encouraged by Jamie's support, Sarah pressed on. We can form a safe space for everyone to share. Let's create a culture where lifting each other up is the norm. Audience engagement was starting to shift. The initial reluctance began transforming into curiosity, even a hint of eagerness. Yet deep down, Sarah felt the pressure intensifying. What if they went through with this and failed? Could she live with that possibility? As the discussion expanded, she realized the depth of the path ahead. They were at a critical juncture, and within that uncertainty lay the potential for growth, both for the team and for her own personal journey. All right, but we have to discuss the boundaries first, Lucas stated, anchoring the group's focus once again. Sarah felt a rush of exhilaration and trepidation. This was what they'd been aiming for, a place of collective reflection. However, it was only the beginning. With the conversation ignited, the stakes had escalated. The next day would be a test of their commitment to this new culture, and with every choice she made, Sarah grasped at the realization. She was not merely guiding others through change. She was evolving too. What lay ahead now was uncertain, but she was ready to confront whatever came next. Would this path lead to healing, or would they find themselves stumbling even more? The crucible they were entering was far from simple, and their next move would define their journey together. The day after the discussion around the video felt like the calm before a storm for Sarah. She poured herself a cup of coffee, staring out the window as the sun rose over the cornfields, washing the landscape in hues of gold and orange. It was a stark reminder of how much had changed, and how much still required transformation. David joined her at the kitchen table, his earlier excitement still radiating. "Ready for today?" he asked, a mix of anticipation and apprehension in his eyes. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, forcing a smile. The previous day's progress felt tentative, and they were still amidst uncharted waters. Today marked the beginning of their commitment to building a new team culture. One openness and support would define rather than competitiveness and ridicule. Arriving at the gym, the energy felt different. More players lingered in small clusters, discussing upcoming practices with an underlying tension that hinted they were still processing their recent conversations about vulnerability. As her eyes scanned the court, she caught sight of Jamie sitting on the sidelines, engaged in a discussion with Lucas. "Here goes nothing," Sarah whispered to David as they approached the gathering. The moment she stepped into view, conversation fizzled, replaced by curious gazes. "Morning, everyone," she said, heart thrumming in her chest. "Today, we formally kick off our new initiative. The aim is to cultivate an environment where everyone feels comfortable expressing themselves. We want to create a culture of support, and it starts with open dialogue." As she spoke, she lifted her chin, allowing her words to resonate with conviction. These players were not merely athletes. They could champion change, starting with opening up about their experiences and forming connections. David stepped up, surveying the group. "After yesterday's discussion, we should share what we're looking for from each other. I want you all to feel that you can voice your thoughts freely." The response was mixed. Intrigue and skepticism intertwined. The discomfort in the air was palpable, but Sarah pressed on. She started fielding questions and comments, her heart racing as the players shared their hesitations. "Why should we trust that this will change anything?" one player asked, crossing his arms defensively. "Because nothing else has worked," she asserted firmly, grounding herself in conviction. "If we don't try to change our culture from within, we're going to keep battling the same issues. We can't afford to keep struggling in silence." The words hung in the air, reverberating with truth. A few nodding heads caught her eye. She sensed a shift, a hint that they were ready to embrace something new. "Let's take a moment and break into smaller groups," David suggested, his tone authoritative yet warm. Share your experiences and thoughts on what supporting one another means to you. Don't hold back. Be honest. At first, uncertainty clouded the room, but gradually the players began forming clusters, tentatively opening up. Sarah stood back for a moment, observing with mixed emotions. Each small group engaged in earnest dialogue, revealing insecurities and frustrations, but also breakthroughs. She saw Jamie foster connection with Lucas, encouraging him to express the weight of expectations he felt on the court. She felt a wave of gratitude for having him on their side. Shadows of fear and doubt drifted into the background, replaced by the glow of camaraderie. The process wasn't without its challenges, but as conversations unfolded, a sense of hope surged in her heart. After about an hour, the groups reconvened, and one by one, players began sharing their experiences. The level of vulnerability astonished her. Here were young men, embodied in what society deemed tough exteriors, admitting struggles with anxiety, fatigue, and the weight of their ambition. Earlier this season, I thought I had to show I was invincible, Lucas admitted, his voice confident yet tinged with authenticity. But honestly, I wanted someone to see me struggling. I want us to win, and if that means showing I'm human, then here I am. Cheers erupted, unified applause reverberating throughout the gym. An undeniable energy pulsed through them. It was the strength that came from vulnerability and unity. As the practice concluded, Sarah felt a wave of euphoria wash over her. The barriers they had faced were beginning to erode, and she relished the feeling of accomplishment. Standing at the exit, she caught David's eye, a shared understanding passing between them. They had come full circle. The initiative was growing roots, blossoming into a willingness to embrace vulnerability and cultivate connection. That journey taught her that transformation comes not just from advocating for change, but by embodying it. A revelation that resonated deeply within her. As they stepped outside into the warm afternoon sun, David turned to her, a brilliant smile breaking across his face. "We did it," he said, the joy of the moment radiating off him. "I think we really did it," she nodded, her heart swelling. In that moment, Sarah not only affirmed David's potential as a player, but also rekindled her faith in her voice and the power it held. The goal wasn't just to redefine their expectations, but to establish an enduring legacy of authenticity. Not just for the basketball court, but in life itself. Their journey wasn't over. It had merely begun. But as they plotted the steps forward, Sarah felt an exhilarating freedom. The realization that she could reclaim her narrative, weave it with David's story, and turn obstacles into opportunities. They were poised, together, on a path to greater horizons. Today marked a truth. Vulnerability would not define them. It would empower them. Now it was time to embrace that newfound strength and steady their resolve for whatever came next. That feeling propelled Sarah to speak. Now a matter of urgency echoed in her soul. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for transformative stories of growth. Leave a like now to show appreciation for the deeper messages we're sharing and to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions, your what-ifs, your inspirations, and theories about Sarah and David's journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Your engagement means everything in our mission to uplift and inspire.